Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome once again to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com and their family of podcasts. It's the Steeler Q&A with Bryan Anthony Davis and Tony Defeo, and it's the Monday after the draft, and there's still excitement in the air and some second guessing as well, too, Tony. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. I am enjoying the sunny day. I took the day off, and it's a lot better than yesterday when it rained for, I think, 24 hours straight. How about you?
I know. I'm in quarantine, week 6, and I'm just doing what I do. One of the things that I have found throughout the last 6 weeks is I am now I'm not a certified teacher, but I might be able to be one pretty soon because I feel like I'm doing the homeschooling with my daughter, and I'm learning a whole lot more about polygons and quadrilaterals that I did not learn in 5th grade. So doing a lot of that. I know a lot more about the Declaration of Independence than I thought I did. And Valley Forge was a very important battle. With that being said, one thing that I really know is the Steelers, and I love draft weekend. And this was a crazy one, guys. What are your first thoughts, Tony, of the draft?
I think it went pretty much as I expected. I looked at this draft. I couldn't get a feel for it naturally. So with it being their first pick being in the second round, I figured it could go any number of ways. But I was pleased with what they did overall. I think they had a lot of depth needs, and they went about trying to fill or address those anyway.
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to say we had our draft last week, and 2 weeks ago we had our mock draft. So we had 2 mock drafts the last 2 weeks. One with myself, Tony, and Wes Hickok, and then last week with all of BTSC Nation that picked the first 32 picks in the Steeler pick, and we were most of us were way off, especially with the Steeler picks. We didn't see what happening. But I tell you, I'm fairly pleased after the knee-jerk reactions and after that initial thought. I was thinking, especially with Anthony Mcfarland Jr., I was thinking, whoa, what? Then I had some time to look at it and think, sometimes you shoot first and have to apologize later, and that's exactly what I did. So I went ahead and took a look at it. And I feel a lot better about that and the whole draft as well. And I know you do too, because I read some of your articles today. As you know, friends, BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, the blog site, is where we all got our start. And Tony wrote a great article on his commentary on the draft. And he had a few of them up there. So really good stuff. So Tony, let's go pick by pick. But before we do that, let me ask you this. Right away, are you going to give this draft a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Oh yeah, I'm giving it. I'm not trying to sound like a homer, but I'm giving it a thumbs up. And that's because after examining what they did over the entire weekend, yeah, they addressed pretty much every need that they could with 6 picks. So I'm giving it a thumbs up.
Captain Underpants has to go, but he's asking this question. Bad, what do you think of those saying that Baltimore had better draft and we had the worst in the AFC North? I don't think the Steelers had the worst in the AFC North. I actually would give that distinction to the Cleveland Browns. I thought the Steelers draft was better than Cleveland's, and I thought it could be. It's not as good as Cincinnati's because, frankly, Cincinnati picked 2 guys before the Steelers even had an opportunity to pick one. And they got some quality, but in the later rounds, Cincinnati's quality wasn't as good. They had some very injury-prone risks in there as well. Baltimore had a great draft. Baltimore drafts well, but it's what Baltimore does with those players after the fact. I remember a few years ago, we talked about one of the guys that we thought was a fantastic draft pick for the Ravens in round 3. When we were picking up Sammy Coates, they were picking up Chris Wormley. And people were raving about that pick. He never got much of a chance to play for them, and now he's a Pittsburgh Steeler. So it's really hard to grade a draft right away. We could do preliminary grades, but with that being said, you look down the line, and you're going to get a true picture of the draft later. If you graded the draft the Steelers 2016 draft now, or graded it in December after the 2016 season, you're going to have a completely different grade. Because Artie Burns, after the first season, people weren't down on Artie Burns after his rookie season. Saw a lot of potential in Artie Burns. It quickly faded away. Sean Davis, everybody was in love with Sean Davis, and Javon Hargrave as well. So, we could look at that. Dark Storm 1 says Max Williams. That's a guy from that very same draft that doesn't have a job now. And everybody wanted him and was like, oh, why did the Steelers not take him? They had an opportunity to take Max Williams. And so, it could look great on paper, and it does look great on paper. And not only that, Tony, not only does it look great on paper, they got a pro wrestling legacy. They got a son of Rick Steiner at fullback in Baltimore as well. And you and I, being wrestling nerds, we'd love to boast that. But you know what? That's what paper says right now. We'll see how it goes. The great drafts that Baltimore has had the last few years has not netted a Super Bowl yet. So that's all I've really got to say about that. Baltimore with Ozzie Newsome, you were hoping that when Eric DaCosta got in that he was a step down. He hasn't been. In fact, he might even be a step up. Yeah, that's correct. Max Williams is still in the league. He is playing with Arizona, but I mean, not much of a factor is really what we're saying there. So as far as Baltimore goes, they got the guy that a lot of people in Steeler Nation wanted in J.K. Dobbins. My answer to that, Tony, is probably the same as you. Hey, the Steelers obviously didn't want him bad enough to be. I mean, when you have a chance to get him and you go somewhere else, you don't want him bad enough. And they have a scouting department. Tony, how's your scouting department that you have employed at your house?
It's like, I think it's like 15%. So I had to let them all go. Over the years, they get it right for like 15% of the time. So I have to start over.
So let's start there. I mean, a lot of people are still talking about Dobbins. I still like the player, but I agree with I agree that the Steelers made the right pick at number one, which is number 2 for them. They had a second round draft pick, but with their first pick with Chase Claypool, I love the pick, and I could see where that is going to be more impactful for this team at this point. And obviously they're the ones that get paid for it, so they thought so too. So what are your thoughts on passing up Dobbins for Claypool?
Well, I mean, my thought is, when you get to the second round, and I've said this repeatedly this week, and when you get to the second round of the draft, there's always those guys that fall that we saw mocked in the first round for months, and then they always drop into the second and third round, and then the Steelers pick somebody there, and then we always say, well, why didn't they pick those other guys? So my point is, if they would have picked Dobbins, then I'm almost positive somebody would have said, or multiple people would have said, why not Chase Claypool? I loved him. I think he has great upside. So no matter who they picked there, it wasn't going to be a universal positive for the fan base. Somebody was going to have a problem with it. So I think, they passed on Dobbins, but I had a hard time leading up to the draft figuring out really what their number one need was. So, I mean, you can make a case for any single position from the offensive line to running back to receiver. And, I thought they got a great, or not a great pick, but a very good pick that could potentially be a great player sooner rather than later in Chase Claypool. I mean, he's got a tremendous upside. He played at a big time program, and he was productive, and he got better each year. I mean, that's what you're looking for a guy coming out of college, is somebody who the arrow is still pointing up. So I really didn't have an issue with that, because, as I said, no matter who they picked, it wasn't going to be a universal positive reaction from the fans.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm just going to read the names that I see on the screen and put myself in there as well. But I'm trying to make a point here. So I'm looking at the names on the screen in the live chat right now. And Tony, I want to ask you this question. Who knows more about what you need in your life? Myself, Brian Anthony Davis, Kathy Ford, Donald Nolan, Wes Hickok, Robert Doc Holliday Sadler, or you? Who knows more?
Oh, I know everything that I need. I mean, I'm always I'm always open for advice. I mean, I welcome great advice, but at the end of the day, it's ultimately my decision, and I know more about me than anybody else.
Yeah, and so I can't tell you what you need in your life. You can do that. The Steelers, they know a little bit more because they're overseeing the situation. They're scouting these guys. They know what's best. So, I mean, that's why, I mean, I could say any organization can do that as well. But the main question that we have today, and the headline for Steelers Q&A, is which member of the Steelers 2020 draft class has the best potential to be a week one starter? Who could start right away, Tony?
Oh, I couldn't wait for this question, and I can't believe how much I love this guy. The guard from Louisiana, Kevin Dotson. I can't. That was like I just have to commend Steeler Nation for. I've never seen a universal. I talked about universal reaction. A universal reaction was so positive for one guy in the fourth round. It was great, and I think from personality to production in college and durability, I think he's going to be a fan favorite right away.
Oh, he would definitely be a fan favorite. I can't wait to find out what number this guy is wearing. I'm putting my order in right away for a Kevin Dotson jersey. Did you see the video of him on Twitter and on social media of him pulling a truck?
Oh, did I ever? I mean, talk about bringing back an ode to James Harrison. I mean, talk about somebody that's already a leader in the clubhouse for fan favorite for this draft class. Yeah, that was amazing. These guys clearly are much better athletes than I am.
So Dave Schofield and Big Bro Sco, great contributors to BTSC radio. They do the Stat Geek, and they appear a lot, as you know, here on BTSC. And they thought that Dotson could be a starter week one on Saturday, what they said. And you know what? That makes a whole lot of sense, because that means you could take Filer, put him back to the tackle position, and you could plug, if Dotson proves he's ready. Now, that might be a little tougher this year, being the fact that rookie minicamps might be compromised. We will see about that. But we've got a plan like it's business as usual. And if it's business as usual and this guy gets his opportunity, I think he can be a day one starter. He can step in right away. You have Filer back at right tackle, and then you're sandwiching Dotson between that of Big Al and Marquise Pouncey. And then at right guard, you still have David DeCastro, one of the best in the league. So that he possibly can make this line much stronger. Now, I like that idea a whole lot better than Filer at guard and Shooks at right tackle. I'm also in favor of starting Wisniewski at left guard and at left guard and at right tackle Filer. So because Shooks is the guy that I really don't want in there. But they know, here's the thing. The Steelers know that better. They're going to make the better decision than I am, because they are more equipped. I'm just a guy flapping his gums, but with a forum on a podcast. But I'm thinking that I think Dotson is probably day one ready. Here's the other thing about Dotson, and it's a shame he can't pick his own number, because Kevin Dotson's favorite player was who, Tony, growing up?
Oh gosh, I wish I knew that. That's one thing I missed. I saw a lot of great things about him. He was a bouncer. He waving the terrible towel. He has a great personality, but I don't know. I missed that one.
He was a huge Steeler fan, right?
Oh yeah, I knew that part.
Jerome Bettis was his favorite player.
Oh, okay.
And well, he said in every password he owns, every password he said used to, number 36 was in every password. And if it's not, you better change it now, big fella.
Yeah, it'd be like 36-2. But add one number on there.
Wouldn't it be great if he could wear 36? Because it's open. No one's wearing it.
Yeah, he could do that and report as an eligible receiver every play.
Yeah, he cannot wear that number. Speaking of numbers, coming out this week, it's already submitted in the queue. It's my annual prediction of numbers, and we'll see if I do better than last year. I was 4 of 9 last year. The year before, I only got 2 of 7. So I really think that I'm going to have a good grasp on the numbers this year. The guy that I'm talking about, and a lot of people in the live chat are talking about being able to start week 1, is Chase Claypool. This guy, the only negatives that I've seen about Claypool is getting separation. But really, this is a guy with his height, with his speed at his height, being the only other guy to run a 4.48 over 230 pounds. The only other one being Calvin Johnson in the last 15 years or so. I think that's fantastic. And if this guy's anything like Calvin Johnson, he might not be, but he might be maybe step down from him. Who knows? But if he's even close, he's going to be pretty big. He's going to be he's going to be a big deal. So it just depends how you classify a starter as a wide receiver, because you could start 3 guys, you can only start 2. It depends on what you do there. But and as 98671X says, separation is not an issue. A lot of underthrown balls too. This guy is going to be able to do a lot of things with the weapon and the talent that he has. I love the Chase Claypool pick. What was your immediate thought when Chase Claypool showed up on your screen, Tony?
I thought it was a good pick. I mean, here's a guy that you saw people talking about. A lot of Steeler fans, as recently as a month ago, were talking about how much they love this guy, and how much I remember seeing the comment section, the live chat. They really want to Chase Claypool. So, I was happy with it. I researched him because of that. I researched him. I studied I didn't study his tape. I'm not that good at that, but I was really impressed by the highlights. Correct me if I'm wrong, and people in the live chat can correct me, but he reminded me, at least from the standpoint of the back shoulder catch, he reminded me a lot of Juju. He reminds me of a bigger, faster version of Juju. And if he can turn out to be that kind of player, even if it's not Calvin Johnson, if he's on par with the Juju, especially his first 2 years, I think that'd be a great pickup. So I was happy with it.
A lot of people wanted a running back, Tony Defeo. Now, here's the question for you. Does adding a guy like Claypool and a returning Ben Roethlisberger make the running position a whole lot better and not a big of a need to have to replace a guy there, or make a huge upgrade as far as that running back stable? I think it makes them better. What do you think?
Well, yeah, because it's going to take, like we talked about this months ago, it's going to take, if Ben's back, it's going to take pressure off the running game, because they can't crowd the box. They can't put 8 in the box, because, you're going to have to play the pass. If you're the defense, you're going to have to play a lot of zone, that kind of thing. So you're not going to be able to put 8 or 9 men in there to stop the run, because, last year it was pretty obvious that the Steelers had the run because the quarterback play wasn't what we wanted it to be. So, yeah, it's gonna take a lot of pressure off the ground game. So, and as far as whether they should have drafted a running back or a receiver, well, you can make a case for both. I mean, they have both positions they're filled with young players, but they're filled with each one has a former Pro Bowler who is coming to the end, coming to the final year of his rookie contract. So one or both of those guys could theoretically be gone next year. So, they were going to have to address that with depth and a possible future starter. So they wound up addressing both needs. It just turns out they addressed one in the second, one in the fourth.
Now, speaking of addressing those needs, Tony, those needs, the main needs that everybody were saying, there were probably about 5 or 6, but and some of them put them in different order the entire way. But the needs that everybody wanted to address were offensive line, wide receiver, running back, safety, defensive tackle, and edge rusher. I mean, you look at this draft, and we warned you, do not try to take for position, take best player available. But this was such a deep draft. There were a lot of best player availables where he stood at the position level. So do you think they the Steelers, accomplished their objective by getting everything they need to fill in those holes and make their team stronger for 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I think they certainly addressed it on paper. Yeah, I mean, it's like you talked about with Baltimore. We have to wait and see. Once they start practicing and if there is a training camp, and then the preseason. Yeah, so you're not going to be able to, especially them this year with only 6 picks. You weren't going to be able to address every position, every need with a premium draft choice. So you basically had to trust your scouts and had to trust your eyes and hope that some guys would fall and fall to the later rounds and some of those later round guys. It's up to the coaches to coach them up, like a Carlos Davis or the safety from Mcfarland Brooks. I mean, those are the kind of players that you have to try to hope you can find a diamond in the rough.
And I tell you what, I agree with D Money. So I'm bringing this on the screen. I think Highsmith could be a Pro Bowler. I think he is. I love everything about this guy. There's a lot of humility to him, but he's also a killer out there. It's really great to see this. And Kevin Johnston, someone that listens to us a whole lot on the podcast level. We don't really see him in the live chat, but he's messaged me a few times. And on Saturday morning, he sent me from YouTube. He sent me a 5-minute clip of Dabo Sweeney of Clemson, the head coach, right before they were playing UNC Charlotte, and it was about the 2-minute mark where he's talking about Alex Highsmith, and his exact words were, "This guy could play edge rusher on any program in the country. You have to account for him at all times." A lot of people didn't know his name. I didn't really know his name. I saw it up there. I really didn't scout him because as far as the edge rushers go, I did not pay attention to him. However, I love what I see, and that's the thing. They're scouting so much more. And I mentioned the word chatter before. A lot of the chatter that you hear is from the media and us. We become the scouting department on these podcasts, and we're not scouts.
Right.
So the more you look at these guys and you look at what they're doing, I watched some tape that not tape, but video that the Steelers put out, and I let it run while I was doing my podcast, and I kept on watching it. And every play that I saw, there's about 10 plays where he was just crushing people. And you ever watch the draft and they highlight the guy on like ESPN or NFL Network, highlights this guy making a tackle, especially a defender, and you're like, all right, it's kind of a weak tackle.
Right.
This guy was crushing people in this video.
Yeah.
Highlight package. I loved it. So what I wanted them to accomplish, and a lot of people asked me where I want them to go first. I thought maybe they'd go running back, but I said where they should go is I wanted them to go first with an outside linebacker. I want the backup plan for Bud Dupree because I think Bud Dupree is now a 1-year rental. Even though he's been here 5 years, but I don't think he's going to be here much past next year. So if you get a backup plan, I feel like he's already an upgrade to Anthony Chickillo, who is gone. And I feel like this guy could be the other bookend to TJ Watt. And that could be a very powerful duo. And I love it.
Well, I think, that's where the coaching is going to come into play because, I read about this in an article that hasn't been published yet, but if Joey Porter, who was the former outside linebacker coach, if he can take a guy like Anthony Chickillo, who was a defensive end in college, and get every last bit of talent out of him to the point where he was a serviceable backup, then, somebody like Kevin Butler, who has a much better track record with linebackers, if he can, I'm pretty confident he could take a guy like Highsmith, who definitely has a much higher ceiling than a Chickillo, and get everything he can out of him. And if he does get his the most he can out of him, it might be to the point where he's a longtime starter in the league. So I think a lot of at this point it's going to be about what Keith Butler can do working with him.
There you go. I agree. Yeah, I love this. Alex Flores puts puts out breaking news. The Steelers are picking up 5-year option for Watt. Well,
I would hope so.
Yeah, if that doesn't happen, boy, we're gonna have a year full of podcast items to talk about.
Right.
So I absolutely love it. So we've talked about a few of the main guys from the draft, and there were only 6. One of the guys that we haven't talked about yet, but he's a guy that has definitely gotten a lot of press throughout this draft process since he was drafted in the 4th round, and it's Anthony Mcfarland Jr. I was incorrect; other people were incorrect, thinking, "Hey, is that Booger's son?" It is not Booger's son.
Well, that's Wikipedia's fault.
Yeah,
when you search, that's like the first thing that pops up. So I think that's Wikipedia's fault, or at least Google's fault.
So, but anyways, this guy's super fast.
Oh yeah.
And I am not going to lie, and I mean, it's out there. You could see it. As soon as this happened, Dave Schofield and I were on live, and I'm like, I hate this pick. And it has nothing to do, and I was saying it then. And I'll say it a year from now if he's an all-pro, that I hated the pick when it happened. I'll give you another pick that I hated. And I was wrong. I hated the Ryan Shazier pick. When it happened, I went nuts. I wasn't on BTSC at the time, but I absolutely hated it. That's not what I wanted there. I was wanting Darqueze Dennard. I wanted a cornerback, and I was just that's all I wanted. It didn't happen, and I was pissed. Then I start watching stuff, and I start seeing stuff more, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a great pick. His first preseason game, I'm like, oh my gosh, boy, was I wrong. And, so it's, I hope I'm wrong again, but it's not the pick. It's not the guy that I did not like. It's the position that I did not want. I was already, after Dobbins and guys like Dobbins and Taylor and Hilaire and Swift were off the board, I was resigned to the fact that they will be fine at the running back position, and they need to focus on the other needs. So this is just not the guy I was looking for there. I really wanted safety Kayvon Wallace at that spot. And Wallace went 4 picks later to Philadelphia. But, here's the thing. Once again, I've been saying it all along. I'm not a scout. I know very little about some of these guys that I haven't looked at. And the guys I'm looking at are just, they're not in person. I'm looking at them through video. I'm looking at them basically because somebody out there that is a draft expert tells me to go ahead and look at this guy. But I just kind of thought that they could have gotten a running back maybe a little bit later. But this is the running back they decided they wanted. So you take him now because the player's not going to last until their next pick.
Right.
Well, in this situation, the player could have lasted to their next pick, but they needed an offensive lineman there too, in which they took in Kevin Dotson. So that's fine. But all I was saying was, look, I think the running back situation does not have to be addressed right at this spot, but it's been addressed. And now that I'm looking at him, glad he's here, Tony. And I know you like him because you wrote an article, but his speed is pretty incredible. It's not a 4.28, but it's pretty good. He's the one-cut runner that really makes things happen. What are you looking at with this guy?
Oh, I the first thing I saw, I was like you. I heard it on the radio, and they were really poo-pooing the pick. The guys that I was listening to, they were really down on the pick. They wanted Leonard Fournette. They wanted in the trade for Leonard Fournette. And then I started reading about him and how fast he was and how little tread was on the tire because he only played for 2 years. And then I started watching his highlights on YouTube. And granted, they're highlights. You're not going to see anything bad in highlights, but he was just so decisive and he hit the hole so fast and he accelerated a lot quicker than you see with most running backs. I mean, it's probably easier if you have the holes that he had to hit in these highlights, but he was just like 0 to 60 like that, and he was gone. And 4.4 speed in the NFL, it might not be 4.2 speed, but it's definitely plenty fast enough. I think Le'Veon Bell was like a 4.6. He did pretty well for himself when he was in Pittsburgh. So, the speed is definitely home run speed, and it's something that the Steelers don't have right now. So as far as maybe the running back position being set before McFarland, maybe it was, but then again, maybe it wasn't. I mean, I think we can all agree now that Samuels isn't a potential starting running back. He's more of a jack of all trades kind of thing, and we don't know about Benny Snell yet. He has that potential, and James Conner might be gone after this year. So, who knows? Who knows what the picture's going to look like in a year?
And Mule Skinner brings up Mike Tomlin's son being the reason why McFarland was drafted. He can be that's part of the reason, because Mike Tomlin has some. He's been around for the last year, been around the Terrapin program because his son is a Maryland Terrapin. But the one guy, Matt Canada, who was an assistant coach there, he's on staff at Pittsburgh, and sure, he's the quarterback coach, but he still gets a chance to say, hey, look, I've been around this guy. We can use this guy on our offense. They're planning on, even though he's the quarterback's coach, they're planning on letting these assistant coaches have some input. And he definitely gets a chance to have some input here. And he was really vouching for this guy as well. So I got to say, that goes a long way too. Matt Canada has firsthand experience with this guy, and they're going to bring him in based on that reason. There was a lot of turnover in the because there was a death on the Maryland football team during training. I believe it might have been 2017 or so. There was some turnover, and one thing they're trying to do is they're trying to move on from the older regime. That's one of the reasons Canada's no longer there as well. But also, they, from what I heard, and I might be incorrect on this, but what I heard was they basically told McFarland to go pro because he wasn't in their plans going forward, as they were trying to completely turn the corner from anybody that was around earlier. Now, that could be completely garbage. That could be false. But as far as everything goes, you have a coach that you brought in here that you trust, then you're going to go ahead and trust that coach, and that's gonna be a big factor in why you're bringing this guy in. So we're gonna find out whether this guy's a good pick. We'll find out. He's gonna get every chance. And here's the thing: I don't care if you're the first guy picked or the last guy picked. You're going to come into camp or any situation that you're going to do whatever you can to make the team. Last year, I don't know if you remember this, Tony. We were saying the one guy that we're sure is going to make the team, and the one guy we're not sure that's probably going to have the toughest job to make the team. Do you remember who those guys were? And if you don't, that's okay. Putting you on the spot here.
Oh, geez. You talking about of the draft class?
Yes.
I can't remember that far back, but I think we have those same kind of discussions, whether it's on through writing or on podcasts every year. There's always those guys that we talk in absolutes about every draft, and that's the part of the fun of the draft. You just never know.
Sutton Smith, locked to make the team. He is the guy. He is the next guy. Couple teams later, I think I know Jacksonville, and I think might be in Seattle now. Ulysses Gilbert III was the guy we said that was going to be the toughest. He had the toughest road to make this team, and he made the team. And now a lot of people don't want to. They don't want to part with him on cut down day, Labor Day weekend. Everybody was saying Gilbert's going to make the team, and he did.
Right.
He made the team.
Right.
So, hey, they know more than what we do.
Well, I remember, I don't know I can't remember if he was drafted last year or the year before. Derwin Gray, the lineman from Maryland. I was so sure that he was, last year. I was so sure he was going to come in and fit right in and get coached up and be another one of those late draft picks or undrafted free agents that plays, that comes in and becomes a starter along the line. And I'm not sure what he's doing. Is he still on the team? I'm not even sure anymore.
he spent a lot of time on the practice squad, but he is still with the organization. A couple of years ago was the year Jesse James was drafted. So I'm looking at 2015. The guy they picked in the 7th round had 11 interceptions as a safety as a senior, named from Louisville, Gerard Holloman. And I was singing this guy's praises. I loved this guy. I'm like, this guy is going to be awesome.
I remember that name now. Wow, that's a blast from the past.
Yeah, he did not make the roster, and I don't know if he made any other roster as well. So the bottom line to why I'm bringing up all these guys is the fact that they come in, and it's their intestinal fortitude to decide how hard they're going to work. You can still try hard to work and give it your all and not make it, but some of them, given the chance, they're going to find ways to prove it. So we're going to see. We're just going to see, but I'm really excited about everybody on this draft class. Another guy from Maryland, and I live in Maryland, Antoine Brooks Jr. This guy, he was a captain, and he was voted the MVP of the Maryland Terrapins last year. So, you know, that guy is a guy that he's a safety, but he's projected more to be a linebacker / safety. And you can't really complain about this pick in the 6th round because everybody wanted Tanner Muse out of Clemson in the 6th round. And when the Raiders took him in the 3rd round, I was like, are you kidding me? You picked him way too early.
Right.
And, but the Raiders thought they needed the guy. So the Raiders, I think everybody in our live chat and you and I can pick better for the Raiders than the Raiders pick for the Raiders. I'm starting to think that.
Well, I think we underestimate how much they teams like that draft on need. I mean, they say best player available, but you can see it all the time in the draft. You know, if a couple guys from one position go before this team's ready to pick, we always say, oh, they have to go with the best player available, and they always wind up taking a 3rd or 4th or 5th best player from a position of need. So I'm not surprised at all. The Raiders did the same thing in the 1st round with the cornerback.
Yeah, and it is it's really interesting to see. Steelers Pittsburgh says we let Deontay Spencer go, and Denver fans love him. I'm still upset about the Deontay Spencer thing. I'm still upset about that. And they razz me on the Steelers preview. That's Jeff and Dave on how much I was in love with Deontay Spencer. But we take these guys and there's certain players we attach ourselves to and we root for. I think Brooks is going to be a rootable guy. I'm looking at some things Wes is saying that he's not good one-on-one. So when you're picking that late of a pick, I'm the kind of guy that I think the draft should end after 5 rounds. When you're picking in the 6th or 7th, it's kind of a crapshoot. It really is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you're just trying to get that player. And we've seen 6th rounders and 7th rounders work. Of course, Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, Kelvin Beachum. We've seen, and the list goes on and on and on. But these are guys that will come in and get their opportunity. Some are going to make the opportunity, and some that we're certain that won't. But I think that they have some players that really fit the identity of what they want of this team. That's why I think it's a successful draft, Tony.
I agree. I mean, as far as like addressing each need, I mean, that's all you can do. I mean, and we only have 6 picks, like I said earlier. You know, you have to hope you get it right with the earlier picks, and you have to hope you can coach up the guys you pick in the later rounds. I mean, we talk about it every year. If they get 2 or 3 guys out of this draft, that's all you can really ask for. I watched a draft special. I think it was from the 05 draft, and the Giants had 4 draft picks. That's all they had were 4 draft picks, and 3 of them contributed to their 2 Super Bowl teams. So, sometimes it's about quality over quantity.
We're going to open up the live chat now. We've probably got about 5 minutes left in the show, and once again, this is an earlier show. I have some family responsibilities to take care of today. So thank you to Tony for agreeing to come in early. So Alex Flores asks, how do you feel, guys, on not getting Moss, the tight end, Randy Moss's son, of course? I'll tell you what Wes says right now. So glad we didn't take Thad Moss. Went to the Washington Redskins. That's a guy that, who knows? If he's healthy, he can go into the Redskins and maybe really make a move. I'm fine with them not doing it. Maybe they offered him a contract in free agency. That's a possibility. But with I was projecting, they could look at this guy in the 7th round, but they picked a guy that could be fill time at tight end with their overall top pick in Chase Claypool. He can be. It just depends what packages he could play as a tight end. He'll be playing as a wide receiver. You still have Vance McDonald and Eric Ebron. So probably really not necessary to bring a guy in unless it's on a free agent deal when you want to address the defensive tackle position in round 7. And that's what they did. Tony, what do you think?
Well, I mean, that's, that was one of the positions after they signed Ebron in free agency. That was one of the positions that seemed like they were pretty set at. So, you have to cut, when that's what free agency is for, is trying to fill holes early on with guys, and they did that with Ebron. So that frees you up to concentrate on other areas. And, down the road, 21, 22, if they need help at tight end and some of these draft picks at other positions they hit on, well, then they can concentrate on tight end with maybe a more premium draft pick.
Okay, this next question, Donald Nolan, a contributor of our show, a good contributor, mentions this, and I'm not sure how to even answer this, Tony. It's a great question. Which player sees more time on the field this year, Derek Watt or Eric Ebron? Tony, they're in different positions, so could they see equal time?
Well, I guess it all depends on, are we going to be more conservative, even though Ben's back, and try to run the ball more? We know how much Ben likes to play and now with the sidecar. So if it's old comes back, the guy that 28, I'm going to say it's going to be Eric Ebron.
All right. We do have a super chat here, and I'm trying to get it up on the screen, and I don't know why I'm having trouble getting it on the screen, but I'm going to go ahead and there it is. Big Rush. Thank you to Big Rush, $4.99. We appreciate that. And if you do want to support the show, besides hitting like and subscribe, which is really important to us, you can go ahead and throw in money in the live chat, and we'll get that to the top of the queue with your question. Big Rush says, good draft, but not getting J.K. Dobbins will be a regret. We could have got him and got the Charlotte linebacker with the next pick. J.K. will be an all-pro running back. I think he really could be an all-pro running back. Tony, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, he definitely has a resume. I'm not gonna rip on J.K. Dobbins now, because I really liked him coming out of college. I was really impressed after people started talking about him. I think he can be a really great player, but you just never know. And it's like I said earlier, with that 2nd round pick, it could have went in any number of directions, and no matter who they settled on, it wasn't going to be a universal positive reaction. Somebody was going to have a problem with it, and that's how it is every year. So Chase Claypool could be, you mentioned Calvin Johnson. He could be an all-pro receiver on that level for the next 5-10 years. And I think we'd definitely take that.
Yeah, it just depends. I love what not what we know, but what we really think Claypool can do and could really boost that receiving core. I'm kind of torn on it. I'm still very thrilled with the Claypool pick. Hate to see him as a rat-bird. Yuck, man. When I saw it, I was like, no. And I thought maybe the Dolphins were going to get him. And then I thought, wait, are the Patriots picking here? I was really confused with that whole thing because everything was fast and furious. And when I saw it was Baltimore, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. But really, that's how, you can only pick one guy in that situation. And I'm fine with it. I hope Claypool is equally successful, because if you have an all-pro in Claypool and an all-pro in Dobbins, then you're both winners.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So So there you go. Darren Dalton asked, does Paxton Lynch win the backup role this year? Tony, I like that question. What do you think?
I think they really like Mason Rudolph. They didn't really even address the quarterback situation in the draft or free agency, undrafted free agents after the draft. So they must really like. I mean, they've obviously they've come out with a vote of confidence for him a long time ago, and they didn't really do anything with the quarterback position in the offseason. So I think they must feel really comfortable that he's made strides. So I think he's going to be the backup. I don't think Paxton Lynch. I mean, based on what he didn't really do anything last year. So, and he hasn't done anything since he's been drafted, and I think it was 2015. So 2016. So I think it's going to be Mason.
Well, let's put it this way. My opinion is Paxton Lynch will get every opportunity to supplant him. And if he supplants Mason Rudolph, then he's the better quarterback, and I'll be perfectly fine with it. That will spell the end for Mason Rudolph. And you have to pick the best based on where they were drafted and what have you. But what I'm saying as far as Paxton Lynch goes, I'm going to disagree with you, Tony, and I very rarely disagree with you. The reason he didn't do anything last year, he had no time in training camp. He came in week 3 or 4, and so we see that a lot with guys with the Steelers. We saw it with Vance McDonald coming in as a trade right before the start of the season. It takes a good year for anybody coming into Pittsburgh most of the time to make an impact. That's why you didn't really see Paxton have an opportunity to do it. I think Paxton will probably be the number 3 player on this team on the depth chart as far as passing goes, but we will see if he could supplant them. Maybe he has a career renaissance here in Pittsburgh too, and that'd be awesome. A lot of people doubt it, but I think it would be awesome. So what I want is the best quarterback, and if one of them could really step up, it'll be great. I'll also respect the fact that Mason Rudolph will sense some competition from Paxton Lynch more than he had last year in training camp as well. And that includes Dobbs being in training camp. So a lot of people had Rudolph winning the job outright before they even started camp. And so they might be having that again, but it will be a definite competition. With that being said, Tony, I think we had a very lively show. I love the show after the draft. Gives us a chance to talk about everybody. Your last reactions of the draft, Tony, as we wrap this thing up.
Well, I mean, people are talking about the Ravens winning the draft. Well, they were going to win the draft all along. They had 10 picks, and I think they had 6 in the first 106. Pittsburgh had 2 in the first 102. So the Steelers were never going to win this draft as far as public perception, but you don't win drafts in April. You win drafts in January or December and January. So I'm interested to see how this all plays out, and it's all about the big picture.
We have one last question here that I did want to bring up before we need to go. What do you guys think about Winston rejecting the Steelers contract? It came out that the Steelers offered him a little more, that he wanted to stay in the division in the NFC South and play for the Saints. I'm just saying it's his loss. It really is his loss. I would have gladly welcomed him in. I am not really. I don't care either way or less. I mean, really, I don't really love the quarterback. I really don't love him. He's a name, and I would have welcomed him in with no problem. But if he's going to reject the Steeler contract, then I'm like, all right, your choice. But here's the thing. What I love about this report, and I hope it's true that he rejected the Steelers contract. I love the fact that the Steelers went after it when everybody said they're not going to. They went after it. Didn't work. That's fine. At least you made the effort, and I'll take it. Tony?
Yeah, I didn't, hear about this till this morning, and if it is true, it's like you said, there was a guy that became available, and they gave it their best shot. There's only so much they can do with their cap space. So I'm impressed that they were actually able to make him an offer that was better than what the Saints gave him. But I think they're just going to roll now with Mason as far as their backup moving forward.
Yul Skinner says it best: 30 interceptions is not Steeler worthy. And I'm not supposed to have favorites, but I love the humor. Frank Webb lives. He's a comic genius in my mind. Go kick rocks, Winston. So there you go. Alex Flores asked again, what about Cam Newton? Hey, they could offer one to him, and I would welcome Cam Newton in. I could really not see Cam Newton. I see Cam Newton waiting for June and waiting for a situation then, and that could possibly happen, but we'll see. But with all of that, thanks so much. We've had close to 150 in the live chat today at one point. Really appreciate all of you. We can't do these shows without you. We usually do this show at 5:00 on Monday. We had to start at 1:30 because of other situations. And you guys were all here, come in droves. We respect everything you do for us, and we thank you so much. So for Tony Defeo, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. Tony, take us out. Well, the great Roddy Piper always says, just when you think you got all the answers,
we keep changing the questions.
We'll see you, Steeler Nation. Thanks so much. Love you.